Hi there. It's time to look at governance and research L1s, including Cardano, Polkadot, and Algorand, especially Algorand. Some of you left a comment and said, hey, I caught it. So basically last week we talked about Algorand is entering an opportunity to confirm whether it is developing a new downtrend like this, or is it going to break out of the downtrend and start at least what it did for the past 2 to 3 months, that, re-challenging the orange key level. It did something more impressive. And the reason to that is, I would say, multi-fold. So I give you a couple of factors that might have contributed to this, but be careful. The reason is that, look at these volumes. The selling volume isn't low. There are people buying the dip, obviously, but the reasons driving potentially driving or contributing to this run over, 50% or almost 60% from the low, this run, is probably something that's not going to last for a few months, for this one. In May, provided the macro environment turns positive very quickly. So what are the reasons? Let's start with the ones with I consider positive but not as impactful. The first one is that Algorand announced they're going to streamline and basically unify their ecosystem operations. So what it does, or how it helps, is that they're going to consolidate, their intellectual property and protocol development. This is going to help how they operate better, make things easier for themselves. So it's a positive, but how large an interest this is going to drive, may it be institutional or retail, is a question mark, right? There are still competitors. So now comes to the second. These are the floodgates, The first one is Post Finance, a Swiss bank that added Algorand to their customers. So their customer can trade directly from a private or savings account. They don't need a wallet anymore. But this is only a small floodgate because Post Finance, if I remember correctly, they've got around 2.5 million customers. Remember this number, 2.5 million. Now the bigger floodgate. Let's see. Revolut. Yeah, this is the one. So that was 2.5. Revolut, 7 million users. Same thing. They can stake ALGO directly within the app. No wallet needed. No more complication for the bigger population. You guys are techies. You know how to use your wallet, how to manage your password or seed phrase well. But a lot of people just find this too complicated. Not stepping into the domain of DeFi. So these banks are opening the doors or floodgates. But still, this is just the gates. Not necessarily everybody is going to pour their money in given the macro environment. Plus, legal uncertainty. So that comes to the third reason, SEC and CFTC in the US. They've classified ALGO as a digital commodity instead of securities. This was back in mid-March. So these factors combined set the foundation. But you may ask, these things seems like they happened quite a while ago in March. Why is it happening on this date? This was 31st, close enough for Revolut announcement. One more thing that helped this continue to boost up. If you go to quantumai.google, there was a white paper published that talked about Post post-quantum crypto. PQC means post-quantum cryptography. And Algorand, look at what's happened, what's saying over here. I read it for you. Algorand provides an example of real-world deployment of PQC, post-quantum cryptography, on an otherwise quantum vulnerable blockchain. So what it says here is that Algorand, part of it is still quantum vulnerable, but it started to deploy something that is ready for post-quantum era. Now, I continue to read this for you, the second page. It has recently deployed post-quantum Falcon digital signatures for smart transactions and state proofs. Okay, and also has made Falcon signature verification available as a TL primitive to enable development of quantum-safe smart contracts for Algorand virtual machine. These PQC technologies are now publicly available, so it's already there. It's not that they're talking, it's already released. Algorand executed its first PQC secured transaction in 2025. Moreover, Algorand enables users to change private keys associated with their accounts. While this mechanism does not provide full quantum security at present, it facilitates future PQC migration. So that's very key. This means one of the biggest worries I shared in some of my Bitcoin videos is that Bitcoin, at a certain point in time, has to prove they are also PQC, or at least quantum ready. Okay, they can transit to a world. Those threats can't cause harm to the network. All right, so that's how all these combined, contributed to what happens that we see here for Algorand. But like I said, these things may be short-lived. Okay, the paper that got published, let's check, is, I'll put the link in the video description, but if I remember correctly, that's exactly also somewhere around 5-6 days ago. Yeah, March 31st. So they're all stacked upon this time. I'm not sure whether that's planned or not, because who would have thought, the announcement from Revolut and the crypto post-quantum blockchains announcement are going to happen around the same time, right? But always be cautious about selling the news. Some people might have bought the news, but also some people waiting for this moment to sell the news. Okay, if you look at the big picture, I'll get back to this because I just remember I forgot to tell the new joiners or the new audience, if you're new, these are the things that I'll cover. Wyckoff stages of each of these projects, their potential price trend change, and key price levels. And these are education content only, not financial advice. Okay? And also, to help you avoid FOMO and panic, like the Algorand case I described just now, the Substack newsletter and also the dashboards are available at Asset Lens on Substack. Okay, that's the handle at Asset Lens. Now go back to the chart. Algorand, from a big picture point of view, Wyckoff is at mid-late stage of accumulation, basically where the whales check out the paper hands and until the point only diamond hands remain. The caveat here is that for crypto world, you have to, or you basically have an assumption that a project will go on, will continue in order for the price to continue to trade, right? If a project shuts down, it doesn't matter. It's just, there's no more trading anymore. So that's the risk, all right? But if you continue to observe what the project team, the foundation, whoever is behind that, or the VC supporting those projects are still active and going on, continue to support the project, making it grow bigger, larger, have more business, running on the chain, then the risk of it shutting down is getting lower and lower, right? Compared to the other, I don't know, 10,000 altcoins that has no business partnerships or utility. Back to this chart. I said many times, at this mid-late stage, what we hope to see is something we call sign of strength, meaning sustained price movement heading towards to re-challenge the level or the trading range top set by the automatic rally. For the case of Algorand, that's 0.24, this light blue T level. This may be the first step, but it can also be just a short-term FOMO before it goes back to the testing mode again. Because of all these macro economy and geopolitical risk happening, all right, the environment isn't just supportive for a big FOMO run. So in other sessions, especially the one earlier, when I talk about the payments and fintech crypto, when you look at the charts, okay, switch it to weekly, what you can always observe, especially among crypto projects, is that these runs to the FOMO top always last lower than 10 weeks. Okay, there may be a second run, okay, like this over here. There may be a second run, but every time if you count the white candles or green candles in your screen, if you haven't changed it, most of them are within 10 weeks. So if there are no bad news, just imagine you have two queues. One queue is for good news. One queue is for bad news. You have the same x-axis timeline. So these two queues, horizontally, you put in those news that are lining up along the timeline. If there are no or very minimal bad news, especially if they have low shocking factor lining up while you have a bunch of good news stacking along the timeline like this, okay? Let me draw it over here. Good news stacking up, good news stacking up, and bad news just one or two mini ones. Then the potential of that FOMO run will be more realistic. And that's when the whales would like to let the price shoot up, because they know these news are stacking up with minimal bad news in between, which nobody cares. Okay, by the time those news, big news, good news, almost die down, the whales have already exited, before that happens. And then you can see the volume drops, the price drops, all right? So that's my theory, or at least how I see the market. After the big picture, let's go to the daily. Obviously, we talked about this, and it has already broke outside of the downtrend, which is supposed to be the base case, because we talk about this, right? This candle withdrawn buy-in from this yellow dash line, the long wick from the bottom, pushing the price back to above the red key level, basically set the range for a sideways trading, which has been proven for almost 2 months, from early February all the way to end March. And April 1st is the very first time it broke outside of this range, somewhere between this yellow dash line of $0.08 all the way to $0.095. And now that it has gone to this part, which, if you look at what happened over here, the 0.125 green key level was exactly when end of January retested and then got shot down. And if you look across, there was also a period of time back in 2024 accumulation that this was a resistance level at some point. So it's understandable that it is getting a little bit of stress over here, because not only back in 2024, but also just recently, this has been a resistance. So this like a straight line up. If this is going to sustain, okay, assume really lucky or fortunately, the economic data coming from the US as well as the war in the Middle East is pushing people to risk on again, assuming that holds true, which I think the chance is a little bit rare. Okay, I won't say it's impossible. Nothing is impossible, right? So here, this triangle, we are at that verge now. Basically, I can pull this over here because we have passed the April 4th already. That's essentially somewhere around April 6th or 7th. Okay? So, just in a day's time, we're going to know, is this crazily steep uptrend is going to continue, or is this going to break this support and comes back to challenge the 0.11 yellow key level? Look at what happened over here. Okay, this yellow key level supported the activities or the trading back in late Jan as well as late December last year. So it can potentially provide a little bit of support. Likewise, the 2024 low was actually around this level as well. Okay, just that what happened over the past 2 months may still be revisited. Okay, so the first line of support, 0.11. Second line, I would say still 0.095, but if it really drops back, the likelihood of it retesting the red or even the yellow dash line is higher than the orange. All right, because it was just too steep. Like I said, without the sustained good news lining up in the near future, the steam is going to run into the atmosphere and then disappear. So let's get to Cardano. Similar sense, according or in terms of Wyckoff, is somewhere around the mid stage of the accumulation cycle. After a low volume period, some activities come back in, but it's still within the testing phase. All right, shaking up and down should be normal. And we talked about this, that the range is between these two key levels. The blue key level of 22 cents 30 and the red key level of 28 cents. It started since beginning of February. And for 2 months, the price of Cardano is within this range. This range was also where the 2022 to 2023 accumulation low was hovering around. Okay, you see from this point, this section, same thing. Daily chart. All right, we get a rejection. We talk about this. By April 6th, we'll get an answer. Is the downtrend going to continue? Or is the yellow dash line going to provide sufficient support that the sideways trend is going to happen? This candle isn't over yet. We're still on the April 5th. It seems like we're getting an early indication of an answer. There's still 6.5 hours for today's candle. There's still a chance for April 6th, Monday's candle. Is the Easter weekend? Maybe some locations around the world the institutions aren't trading on the 6th, but some do. So we'll see whether the base case, the range bound, is still going to continue, or is this going to come down to challenge the blue key level, 2.223, because that's what happened for 6 days in a row before yesterday. Okay, yesterday stayed above the yellow dash line, but those 6 days over here, if you look across the past 2 months, it hasn't happened. Okay, only this day where strong bind the dip activity came in, tested this blue line or went below the yellow dash line, but it did not close below. These days in red, or even this one in white, getting pushed back by the bears, those closed below the yellow dash line. So that's the worry I have, that it has been coming down to a level it hasn't been testing for a while. Okay, so let's hope it is not the case for Cardano. But like I said, news are lining up. That's what it matters. All right, even if it's just a bit of bad news, that's going to let the price retest the blue key level. So hopefully it's not too bad. Just like I said, the testing of paper hands by the whales. Okay, if there are little paper hands left, then this move wouldn't be too big. Now, Polkadot. Let's take a look. So, similar sense, paper hands down and hands test. We are looking to have a sign of strength to happen in order for the price to come back to challenge the orange key level of $5.15. Okay, we're still at a very low level compared to, well, we have to go back to summer of 2020. Okay, still the COVID period. The price is actually hovering around the low of that period. Okay, 1.45 orange key level. And the support indicated by last year's October tariff announcement day by the US is 0.97. Okay, this range bound between 0.97 all the way to the yellow key level 2.06 has been the playground for the past 2 months. Okay, you see since the beginning of Feb. This gigantic volume bar over here is interesting. Whether people were panicking because that week, let's go to the daily chart, especially this 25th, why there was quite such a volume gone in. It was before the strike in the Middle East. So someone front run it is very interesting, right? Okay, and then the war broke out. It did not drop very deep. We see a little bit of factor over here. The war prolonged, and then the rejection pushed the price back to just where the support, the sideways trend support is, 1.23. So it's not too bad. The range bound still remains 1.23 to 1.67. Okay, it hasn't changed much, especially for the past 6-7 days. You see the candles or the bears aren't pushing through this support line. And today's volume is multiple of the past 2-3 weeks, and it's still staying above the line. So the bulls are doing a good job. The bears aren't killing it that fiercely, right? Even with this trend that shows like 12, 13 red candlesticks, it's not pushing the price to another low. All right, we talked about this like by April 1st, we'll get an answer, and indeed we got it. All right, April 1st, the price stayed above. For the subsequent days, it stayed above this yellow line. So this downtrend is over. Okay, just that it isn't an uptrend like we said before. Okay, there were 2 tests over here. One, was it an uptrend? Okay, because what happened over here, has it started an uptrend? That's why we're gauging it with this channel box. And on the 25th of March, we get the confirmation. No, that's not the uptrend. Okay. And then that means the base case of a sideways trend still continues. Then we get to a second window, April 1st. And that's confirming, okay, the sideways trend still seems to be going on. Okay, that started here, February 6th. Remember, the charts that I showed you very similar across altcoins. We see this large red candle, February 5th, and then this long wick from the bottom on the 6th. Okay, remember these two candles. Go back to Cardano. We see the same thing, right? The 5th, the 6th, as well as Algorand. The 5th, the 6th. Even if you go to other altcoins, you may find something similar. So this tells us a story. This is the range that probably only very few paper hands are left. Okay? So that's why the test coming down to retest is very important. If the situation doesn't change and there's still strong buy when the price goes below this, that means this is a point where some, I don't know, fishes or whales are willing to get in. And that's not going to let the price go down any further, even if this macro environment has gotten worse than before. Okay, so this round of tests is very key because the war has come in, there is the recession expectation, rate hike expectation. The expectations and the risk factors are completely different. How the institutions or the professional investors calculate their risk, or where do they see upside movement of investment assets, have changed a lot. If this test still proves solid rebound whenever the price gets lower than the previous test in early February, I consider that a good sign, a positive sign, even though the price of crypto across the board is still way, way lower or at all-time low. Okay? If you look at the charts of all these, they are telling us same story. Okay? That's not coincidence. Right? I'm opening every chart I have talked about just now today. Ripple, Stellar, Onyx Coin, Cardano, Polkadot, Algorand. Okay, even the next session, Hedera. You see these two same candles. Casper, not as prominent, but still red, white on the 5th and the 6th. XDC, similar sense. Okay, so if you're interested to access these sessions 2 days earlier like the other members, join the channel membership now. And remember, the dashboards and newsletter to avoid you FOMOing or panicking is available on Substack at Asset Lens. I'm moving on to the Hedera, Casper, and XDC session now. Thank you.